Here come old flat top, he come grooving up slowly. He got juju eyeball, he won holy roller. He got hair down to his knee. Got to be a joker, he just do what he please.
Welcome, everybody. This is Uncouth Radio with Uncouth Conversations with my man E. Strong, Mr. Eric Strong. He's joining us from Police Against Racism today, a great organization that I've been having some amazing dealings with. We've been talking about a whole plethora of things in regards to trying to transform the community, trying to transform the culture of the police officers, trying to transform everything that's going on and that we need. Thank you so much for joining us today, Eric. Give me a quick intro of who you are and let the people know who you are and what you're doing.
Hey, my pleasure, Dame. I'm glad to be here. I like to keep it simple, brother. I'm just a guy that's out there trying to do what everybody else is doing. That's trying to, make a way for my family, trying to do something productive for society. I have been in law enforcement for the past little over 27 years. I born and raised in the LA area, went to school out here, had a lot of experiences, done a lot of work in a lot of different neighborhoods and a lot of different communities. And, I see what's going on. I know what's going on. And one of the things I want to say is, when I'm at work, I'm at work.
Right.
When I'm not at work, I'm another black man in a society, just like all the rest of us. So I am not immune to a lot of the stuff that's going on, and that's what we're here to talk about.
Absolutely.
I recognize it, and the organization recognizes it, and we want to be part of the solution.
Speaking of being part of the solution, can you tell us first what prompted you guys to put this organization together? Because I know something like this is like a scary jump off a cliff to make, especially with how tumultuous politics is right now within police departments, with how everything is looking. Even with the presidential election, is almost like you're either for law enforcement or for rioting. There seems to be no in between the way things are posed, but we know there's more nuance to that. So I just want to ask, what was the thing that made you in London, what was the thing that made you guys say, hey, we need to put together an organization like this in particular?
Well, I got invited to the organization through Fred Reynolds, who's the vice president. The person that actually put together the organization and started it was Joe, and he brought London in. And I think it was just seeing a need. There are thousands and thousands of police officers out there who every day, step up and do the right thing. But all across the country, we're kind of individuals, that are oftentimes silenced, or we're just individuals doing the right thing one step at a time. And as with anything, we wanted to bring together an organization that gets a voice and lets people know, hey, you're not alone in this fight. There are police officers that stand up, with you, with some of this, some of these racist acts that are going on. So I had an opportunity to hear what the organization was about very early on. It's a new organization, and I jumped in with both feet because it's something that I believe in. And, I think we're just trying to get out there and show some solidarity and let people know. And as well as, you can do a lot more, with a group effort collectively than you can individually yourself. And that's what we're trying to do. Okay. So speaking of that, so let's hop right into it, because I posted on my page. I told people, like, send me a couple of questions of things you would like to ask and talk about with PAR. Like, what are some of the things you have trepidation about in regards to trusting an organization like PAR, or believing that this is something that can be a real thing and something that's not strictly politically motivated? And I'll tell the people for myself,
from what I've seen of the organization, it's not something that's politically motivated. It's not on that level. It's really some boots to the ground, trying to figure out how to, fix some of these problems from a community standpoint and from the inside of the of the law enforcement standpoint. I'll say that for myself and my own testament to, being able to listen in on you guys' calls, have conversations with you back and forth. One thing I will say, this is the first time I've had these kind of broad conversations with law enforcement, which is kind of crazy when you think about it, because I've been living in the city, my whole life. And for this to kind of be the first time that I've had these kind of positive interactions with police officers, that actually says something too, especially when you weigh it against a lot of the negative interactions I had. And I think that's what a lot of the people where I grew up and where you grew up, a lot of people feel right at this point. It's like a lot of us have had some negative experiences. And look, I'm not saying every single time I got pulled over, it was something negative. All right. So I, because there were some times I got pulled over, a cop was cool. He let me go. Even if I was riding dirty, I was wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like I didn't have my tags or something. But then there were other times where Cash was riding me for no reason, or telling me I look like a suspect, or just treating me like a criminal and no respect. Like that baseline level of respect sometimes is not there from the officers. But I've learned, talking to you guys, sometimes you guys even have to deal with some of that same kind of disrespect from the inside. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't know and don't understand. So this is my first big question to you. A lot of people say, and I'm sure you've heard it, a lot of people say there are no good cops because they continue to let the bad cops roam free. So in our eyes, all cops are bad because they keep letting the racist cops go. What do you say to that?
This is uncouth radio, right?
Yeah, get raw. We raw, uncouth.
I say, you know what, BS. I said that's like taking any organization, any group of people that has a negative stereotype and saying that there's no good in it. I want to say it's a ridiculous thought statement, but at the same time, I can see why people think that way, because some people, the only contact they have with law enforcement, the only contacts they hear about with law enforcement, the only contacts they know of that their friends and their family have dealt with have been negative. And not only that, the media portrays 98% of the negative stuff that goes on. And when I say 98%, what I'm saying is, in comparison to the reports that you see about positive law enforcement interaction versus what you see about negative interaction, I believe that the media plays a huge role in this. So what I say to people is, understand that, like I said, I'm a police officer when I'm at work. I mean, I'm a police officer technically. I mean, I guess you could say I'm a police officer 24 hours a day, but I applied for a job and I got hired, just like anybody else does at any other profession, in any other career, whether it be Amazon, UPS, the post office, a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, whatever it was. So I would just ask people to understand that there's good and bad in everything.
Okay, so give us up. Well, and I understand it. So give me some insight, or give the people some, because I kind of have the insight now because of the conversations I've had with you guys. But now give the people some insight to why it's difficult to follow that train of thought to the end, and why it's difficult, like you said, to be one man by yourself, to go in there on some movie shit and turn a Serpico. You know what I mean? And like, I'm arresting all the cops in here. Explain to the people why that sometimes can prove difficult.
Well, I think it has to do with the culture of law enforcement. When you really look at it, and one of the things that we've been talking about, Dame, in some of our meetings or general meetings, is the systemic racism, the system that is out there that is designed. I mean, it's the educational system, it's the banking system, it's the judicial system. It's wide and it's broad. Right. Law enforcement is the hand that deals with a lot of that. So law enforcement is that entity, that organization that has to go out and contact people and tell them, hey, this is what you're doing wrong. This is, we're the ones that go out there and deal with all the negative. So right. It's easy to focus on us. So But when you go back to it, when you look at nationwide, and don't quote me on the stats, but I want to say in the high 70s, nationwide, law enforcement is predominantly white still in America.
Right.
You know, we have a predominantly white law enforcement demographic. So now take that and you break that down to different organizations. And let's say, you know, a major organization like LAPD or LA County Sheriffs, right? Which is in the LA area, you know, 10,000 strong, something like that.
Right.
When you have about 6%, 7%, let's even say you got 10% of that large of an organization that is African American, that's Black, how loud do you think their voice really is?
Right.
You know, and then again, you're talking about 6-7% spread out over the entire county, which is more than 4,000 square miles. So when you look at some stations, you might have one Black person in the whole station, if not less than that.
Which is another issue in itself, and we'll talk about that as well.
Exactly. So the point is that our voices oftentimes get stifled. You know,
Right.
we can complain about something, and then it, you know, sometimes it becomes, oh, there's the angry Black man, there's the angry Black woman. They're just, you know, they're just tripping. It's no big deal. And when you look at when that mindset is perpetuated throughout the ranks, and things are brought to the attention, however, they're not taken seriously, they're pushed down, you know, two things. One is you get a level of fatigue, you get tired, you start getting ostracized. You know, you start becoming the one that nobody wants to talk to, that nobody wants to ride with, that nobody wants to go and back up on the calls. The other thing is there's a portion of us too that kind of fall into it, that say, hey, you know what, I have to, you know, go along to get along. So
Thank you.
Yeah, there's a variety of different reasons for it.
Okay. So all right. So you said a handful right there. So we're talking about the culture of it, right? You said the coach. So let's talk about that. Let's dissect that first, right? Because there's you know, we talk about police against racism in some of these calls, and we talk about the racism that we deal with as civilians on the outside. But then you guys sometimes talk about the racism that you deal with from the inside. So what can PAR do to kind of start to break down those things in the culture? You know, because I know there's, like, you know, me and you have conversations about what we wish it could be and what it is often, right? And what we wish it could be is you tear it down and build it down the correct way. But what it is, so I'm asking you from what it is, how can PAR, and what does PAR need even to be able to go in and start to make that change in the culture? Because I do think that's the first step to stopping the systemic racism inside the department, is a lot of the culture. I talk to, and I tell the story all the time, I talked to a young white cop in Torrance, and he told me, he said, look, man, we're trying to be different. He said, we're trying to be different and we're trying to police in a different way, but our training officers want things to be a certain way. And it's so hard to go against the things that our training officers want. And I felt like, damn, that's crazy, because this is a young white officer saying, like, I came out of the academy, I wanted to do the right thing, but now here I am, and all the people above me, they kind of want us to implement racist policies. So I'm asking you, what can PAR do to kind of like be the in-between of that, to try to, you know, make that change?
Well, I think number one is I'm gonna say this, Dan, there's a lot of spokes to this wheel. We've talked about it. You know, there's no one thing, but the first thing we can do is get support, positive support from the community, from some of our local politicians, and gain as much support as we can from internally within law enforcement, those people that, you know, believe in what our mission is. And as I started off in my introduction is, you know, when you have strength in numbers, it makes you much more powerful than just one person, you know, coming. And so as PAR moves along and as PAR gains credibility and they gain legitimacy, you know, one of the things we want to do is education. You know, I do believe that, my personal opinion is that most racist stereotypes, biases, I believe a lot of it comes from ignorance. You know, a lot of it is taught. So if somebody's teaching you a certain way, and that's all you know, then that's what you're gonna. That's more times than not. That's what you're gonna adhere to. You know, and a lot of times, some of these people have never even encountered or been around, you know, a certain minority in large numbers, so they don't know anything about them. So if all you hear on the media is they're bad, they're evil, they're dangerous, then whatever you see is going to help support that bias that you have. So education for me is key. I think we need to kind of get into the point where we can really have not just some mandatory education that you just go to and you sit in for 8 hours and you can't wait to get out. We need to have some real impactful, uncouth conversations that are not about being politically correct, that are about getting down to the nitty gritty about why people think a certain way, feel a certain way, and letting them know it's not okay to, you know, to do that. So education is key for me, and making it very uncomfortable. And that's one of the things we talk about. We want to have the numbers so that it's going to be very uncomfortable for if there is a police officer out there that has some nefarious ideas about the way that they want to interact with a certain community. We want to make it very uncomfortable for them. So, well, man, right. I can't do it because so-and-so's watching me. I can't do it, you know. So whereas maybe we can't necessarily change their mindset, we want to make them rethink what they're doing and how they're doing it. I'll give you an example. I'm sure all of us on here, anybody has always thought about, man, boy, I could just pick that up and walk away with it, you know, and nobody would know. Or I could just get up and, I mean, in other words, we all have thoughts in our head, but it's what we do with them that makes us who we are.
Right.
Make sense? So, you know, I'm not saying that we can change everybody's mind, but two things we can do is we can work to change their mind, change their heart, educate them. The other thing is we can make it very uncomfortable for them if we can't change their mind so that they're not in a position where they think it's okay.
Right. Right. And I think that's the big thing because, you know, I talk about that often. Like, you're like, I probably can't stop you from being racist, but I want to be able to stop you from being able to enact that racist behavior through this job.
There you go.
You know what I mean? Because that's more of a realistic thing. Like, okay, look, there's probably no way that you're going to stop people from actually being racist, but stopping people from being able to apply. And you know what? I don't want to just designate it to racism and certain aggression. You know what I mean? Because sometimes there's just certain aggression that we deal with. And because sometimes we even deal with this aggression from black cops. So I can't say it's only racism when it comes to that. Like it's the racism plus there's this aggression towards people in inner city neighborhoods that I think needs to be checked, needs to be fixed. But like you said, a lot of that goes to the way community policing has changed. Like let's start there. Like community police, like I don't know any of the police in my area, but as a kid, I knew the police in my area. They would come talk to us. We knew their names. We had a relationship. So then when we became teenagers and they saw us, they would know, oh, no, them guys not into that stuff. Like, I know those guys. You know what I mean? Right. Like, I know them. That's Dame. He goes to Washington. He's in the band. Like, the police that I grew up with, it was like that. It's not like that anymore. So if you don't have that kind of community policing, when there's a situation where you roll up on me and you have this aggression because you don't know me and you don't know the neighborhood, it's hard to build that trust. It's hard to have the difficult conversations. And it's hard to even, like you said, be able to discern between what's right and what's wrong sometimes with people. Because to me, I'm like, why is it that I don't know any of the police in my area? Why is it that there is no connection between the police and the community? And the only connection is when it's something negative. And that don't mean always police brutality. I mean something negative where like I'm getting a ticket. The only time I see the police is if I'm getting a ticket, if I'm getting pulled over, if I'm getting, there's no middle ground to where we see the police outside of that. And I think that's something that, needs to change as well, just so PAR can work if we can rebuild community policing and have more people in the community want to be police. Because we're at a place right now because it's hard to convince people in our neighborhoods to want to go be the police. And listen, we need us to be police. We need us to go out. Like we need us. I'm talking about people who grew up in the area, which is another thing we discuss in a whole nother layer of the onion. But we need people who grew up in our neighborhood to go in, because one, talking about the culture on the inside, let's talk about the culture on the outside. Me and you, because we grew up in the same area, we can relate to certain things. We can relate to certain language. We can relate to certain slang. We can relate to certain movements. Like we see something, you see the way somebody move. And look, I'm not trying to say that you be racial profiling, but we know gang profiling, right? Like you see the way somebody moves. Sometimes you like, he bought that gang life. You could tell because you grew up in it and you saw it.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who like you, who didn't grow up in the neighborhood with us to see it, they don't know. To them, it's all the same. You know what I mean? Yeah, all the blacks is all the same. And so that's why I feel like we need more people like us who know, like, oh, you see the way, he rocking the way he move, or like there's certain things that we know. There's certain social cues we have just growing up in the neighborhood that we know and understand. That I think cats from Orange County, they're not going to understand. Cats from Valencia, they're not going to understand. Cats from the Valley, even, they're not going to understand these things that we know and see because of the neighborhood we grew up in. And also, when you grow up in this neighborhood, you have a much bigger understanding about what gangs are where, what neighborhoods are who the big players are, who the OGs are, who the little lokes are. You know what I mean? Like all of that, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, you know what I'm saying? So I think that's why we need to have more of us trying to become cops. But then you have that roadblock of people feeling like, I'm not about to be the feds. I'm sure you heard that. You know what I mean? Like I'm not about to be the feds. And that goes back to the culture that you deal with on the inside. And I want to know, what can we do as the community to help get behind PAR? Like, because you said, one of the like you said, it's a wheel with many spokes. So one of the things that matter to PAR is having a community behind them. So one, how can we build this community trust with PAR? And what do we need to do to bring more people along and bring more people aboard with your mission?
Well, the first thing and the best thing with anything, in any relationship, you need dialogue. You need to be able to communicate. So the way that we can start, building a relationship with the community is having opportunities to sit down and talk. Just like, I've had opportunities to sit down and talk with you. I would have never had that opportunity had it not been for PAR. And maybe, Lord willing, he would have crossed our paths at a different time if it was meant to be. But PAR has already opened up doors and windows, for people like you and I to get together and dialogue. So the main thing is just having the opportunity to get out there and have conversations with as many people as possible, to let them know that, one, let them see us as a real person, let them see us outside of, a role. When you look at law enforcement, a lot of agencies have a community affairs officer or deputy or division.
Oh man, froze up.
Community division responsible for. Lose you? Okay.
You back.
So, but what it really should be is, it should be every police officer that's out there every day on every call. Law enforcement has changed, man. I came in '93, and law enforcement has changed. The responsibilities they put on the regular patrol deputy, on the regular patrol officer, are far more than what it was put on when I first came on. So as far as the community goes, the best thing we can have them do is reach out to us or come to the meetings, have some of that dialogue. Let us hear some of the things that they're concerned about. Let us answer them in real terms. We're not on there. You're not talking to somebody on a podium that's trying to maintain, their electoral vote for the next election.
Right. Right.
Trying to say the things. You're going to have some real dialogue. You're going to get some real answers. And the one thing that I like about PAR is that it's police against racism. So the other thing I would ask for the community is, you got to be willing to listen to both sides. I mean, both sides have to be willing to listen. So I think it's imperative that we just have opportunities to talk. That's where it starts. Any relationship that you've ever built with anybody, it started with an opportunity to be in the same place at the same time and to have a conversation. And that's where it all started with. You tell me one person that you have a relationship never talked to.
Right.
Doesn't exist. You know what I mean?
Right.
You're a pen pal. But even then you're communicating through writing. We don't do pen
Right.
pals anymore. You might have friends on Facebook or whatever, but the bottom line is opportunity for dialogue. That's the biggest thing right now. We just got to be able to talk like two people sitting down, and be willing to listen.
Yeah. So and I want to talk to you about that other side, because look, you've been touching on so many things. I want to make sure we get, to the meat of a lot of the things. You said sometimes there are police who get in there who end up feeling like they need to, what you say, get along to, go along to get along. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another thing. So how do you even deal with that? Because if you have guys like you who are saying, look, there's racism in the department that needs to be nullified. There's situations that need to be fixed and handled. No, we're not saying every single police, every single cop is racist, but we know there are situations. And then you have somebody who looks like you on the other side telling these same people, there's no racism, there's not a problem. These people are trying to be politically, like, how do you combat that? Because that's a whole other kind of battle in itself when you're trying to show like there's systemic racism, and then you have one of your own ilk in there in uniform telling people there's no systemic racism, there's no issues, there's just the negative exception, like they like to use that term, the negative exception, and we don't have to spend this much time and focus on a negative exception. How do you combat that? And these are your brothers at arms in the force.
Dame, that's a very good question, man, that I'm still looking for the absolute answer to. Again, it goes back to, I think, conversations. And I will say this: I've worked for 3 different agencies, 3 different law enforcement agencies here in Southern California throughout my 27 plus years. Not once has anybody ever told me, hey, you have to be racist. Hey, you have to look a certain way. Us again. Not once has anybody ever taught me. Huh?
No, go ahead. You back. Yeah, you good.
Not once has anybody ever specifically said.
Damn it. It's like right when you get to the good stuff, right? You start to lose them a little bit.
I think we keep cutting out. Is that me or you?
I think it might be you, but I'm trying to fix it now. Because I said, you're getting right to the good stuff. So you were saying at no time has anybody told you have to be racist, you have to act racist.
Yes. However, within the profession, and I'll be honest with you, I'm learning this, throughout my years within the profession. It's very easy to become or to buy into the us versus them mentality.
Okay.
Very easy to look at it and say, we're out here trying to do the good of the world, and you're out there trying to do the evil of the world. And what we have to do is we have to combat that. I've seen some blacks out there that are saying, hey, them.
Yeah.
Talking about the community. And
yep.
I'm not saying I'm anything special. I'm really not. I'm a little different. I think a little different a lot of way, a lot of times than the norm, because I don't buy into it. Let me say this. I knew who I was before I ever put on that badge.
Right.
The badge did not make me who I am as a man. It did not identify me. My parents did a good job raising me to say, hey, these are the things you stand up for, And so, but I have seen people get that badge and get that uniform and change. You can see the change.
I've seen it too. I had a couple of friends.
So what we have to do is we have to remind people, hey, that's not what this is about. You can still, you can be both. You could be a black man and wear a badge. But where the two meet and clash, that's when you go with what's right. Not right. Support. I saw let me just say this. I saw a Facebook post not too long ago, which was one of the most absurd things I ever heard. And I started to comment on it, but I said, you know what, if I go down this road, bottom line, the post said this, and it was some law enforcement. And I don't even know who it was, but it was on it was one of my friend's threads, but somebody said, anybody that chooses their race first over the profession shouldn't have the job.
Wow.
And I said, you know, how absurd, how ridiculous is that? Especially when, you know, you could look at somebody's profile picture and see it's coming from a white man.
Yeah.
Where you never had to experience being black.
Yeah.
How do you get to say that?
Yeah.
You've probably never walked into a store and had people, the loss prevention folks, start following you.
Right.
You know, so you've probably never been pulled over in Huntington Beach, in Culver City, in Torrance, in Beverly Hills. When you know you're not breaking the law, you know you're not speeding, you know you got your seatbelt on, you know you stopped at the stop sign, you know you used your blinker. I'm a cop. I know the rules of the road. So when you pull me over and I know I've been following the rules of the road, what else can I attribute it to?
Right.
All these other cars around me, you just somehow happen to pick my car.
Right.
You know, and yeah, you can always find something to pull somebody over. Like you said, you got pulled over, you kind of fit the description. Really? You know, why? You know, right. So you know, Dame, what I'm saying is, and let me back, I done kind of got off point a little bit, but the thing about working on some of the blacks that are inside that kind of buy off into it, I'm telling you, the profession somehow, some way does a very good job at bringing you in and making you feel that you're a part of something bigger and making you feel like you're a part of something better than what's going outside the walls of the station. And they bring you into this brotherhood, almost like like a team. Right. But what you find out is, as long as you're going along with the program, everything is cool, everything is gravy. But as soon as you twist and go, hey, wait a minute, that's not right, or within those same walls, they'll turn on you. They'll turn on you. So I don't know, man, the answer to that, other than having some real tough conversations with them and saying, hey, brother, hey, sister, what are we doing here?
And I know you talked about earlier too. You talking about, like, we were talking about, you can't really change you could try to change people's minds and hearts, but you can't always. So has PAR thought about looking into changing certain policies so those policies will affect the way the job is done, where you don't have to always necessarily depend on changing hearts and minds, where the policy will precipitate certain things? Have you guys thought about that? Is that one of the options that PAR has thought about from a legislative side even?
Yes, absolutely. Let me just back up. The other thing that people see and blacks see is that if you want to get to certain positions, if you want to promote, if you want to get to some of these coveted positions that, you got to be a certain way, and so a lot of people, buy into that. Look, hey, if I want to promote, I can't be this person over here. I can't be rah blacks, because that's not what they're about. Right. So what do I have to do if I want to get, and to me, I've seen several people say, hey, you know what? I need to be this certain way so I can get to a level where I can affect change. And then when they get to that level, they've been doing it for so long. Yeah, they've been doing it for so long, they forgot.
Yeah.
But back to your question about legislation, that is something that PAR is interested in. I think right now we've had some deep discussions about that, and we've had politicians in our board meetings. We've had different chiefs of police in our board meetings, and we talked to them about their ideas and about their legislation. Yes, PAR would like to be a part of that, those policies and things like that. The issue right now is, again, PAR is new. We're building support. Once we get that credibility and that legitimacy and that name, reputation, and we can bring support by way of voters, then I think we'll have a lot more success in really having an impact on some of the legislation.
Okay. I mean, that's fair, and that's a great answer. And also, I kind of wanted to get into and talk about, of course, the buzzword of the buzzword of the year when it comes to police. How do you feel about defunding the police? And we've had these conversations, but I just want to, us, to have this conversation for the people in public really quickly. And I'll give you my side real quick. I told you, I don't give a damn what the police budget is if y'all stop being racist. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's my thing. Like, bottom line is nobody
Right.
is really concerned about the budget if the police are doing what they're supposed to do. If the police are policing us the way they should be policing us. If we are feeling safe and served and protected just the way I would when I'm in Brentwood, just the way I would if I was a white man in Beverly Hills. Like, I should be able to feel like that wherever I am. So that's my take on it, because I feel like this is some weird buzzword that people came up with to really distract from the real issue. Because I'm like, look, I understand what they're trying to say. I understand they want to divert funds, but like, I think those funds should go into social services anyway, regardless of what the police have, what the police don't have. There should be more money in social services in the city budget anyway. But give me your take from a law enforcement perspective of how you feel about the whole defund the police campaign.
Okay, that's gonna be a good one. I have a few different thoughts on it. One, when you look at budgets for law enforcement, most of them go into salaries. A lot of the stuff that we get, tools, toys, equipment, cars, etc. You can get through grants and different funding. I mean, there is some of that stuff that's worked into the budget. I will say this, that having done it, we are the 365, 24/7 people that you call when something goes wrong. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Law enforcement puts a lot of wear and tear on their body over the years. With the hours, the days, the lack of sleep, the equipment that we carry around. So when you start talking about defunding the police, are you talking about cutting budgets? Are you talking about cutting retirements? What are we talking about? I guess when people say defund the police, I really don't know what that means. Does it mean just have less police officers? I haven't heard a specific plan yet that identifies what that means. Now, with that said, we have become social workers by having to go out at 2:00 in the morning and address child abuse or child neglect complaints. We have become mental health workers with having to identify people that are having a mental health crisis. And they give us this little bit of training. And what I believe is that, again, we're that 24/7, 365, organization. And what people do, and I shouldn't say people, but what cities do is, imagine this. Imagine being in a 4,000 square mile county and you have people with mental health crises, and you put a mental evaluation team out in the field. But after 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock or 7, whatever, let's say 7 p.m., let's say when the sun goes down, there's maybe like 4 of them in the whole county. How long do you think you can get them if they're on a call in Palmdale, Lancaster, to get down to Carson, Lomita? All the way down south.
Right.
So what we've been doing is we've been putting Band-Aids fixes and hey, have somebody push again.
Yeah, you back.
When technically you have people to address those needs, but is it adequate? So I think, what needs to happen is, and then what you have is you have social workers. Let's say social workers, I'm using as an example, right? If you want a social worker to respond somewhere because child neglect, child abuse, these type of things don't happen 9 to 5. They happen at all times of the day, every day, and they don't just happen Monday through Friday. So when they get off at 5 or 6 o'clock and you have 1 or 2 that are on call, what's the delay time? So when you say defund the police, there's a lot of time and space that needs to be filled in with adequate services. It cannot be a Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. You can't be banker's hours. You're going to have to put people out there that are going to be there 24/7, 365 days of the year, that are going to leave their family on Thanksgiving, on Christmas, on birthdays, at weddings, and they're going to respond to the crisis that is going on somewhere in the community. The other thing is, if you defunded the police, and let me just say this, I'm okay with it as long as the sources and the resources go where they're needed.
Right.
If you defund the police and you have other people, other professions, be it psychologists, mental health workers, social workers, whatever it is, if you have them coming out and servicing communities, but you're still hiring, and let's just say law enforcement is high 70% nationwide. Let's just say you hire all these social workers and psychologists and they're 75, 80% white. Are they going to be able to relate with the community any better?
Right.
Are they going to be any more fair? And I'll give you an example of going to, and it wasn't a black person, it was a Hispanic family, going to a Hispanic family's house, a single mother raising her children, and a social worker wanting to come and remove the children from the house because the daughter said the mom spanked her. Now, the daughter was 17 years old and 5 months. She lied to her mother. The mother spanked her with a belt, one of those, one of them belts that got cloth on the inside, it'll crack after you heard about.
Yeah.
And here's what the social worker's basis was for why she felt like she needed to remove this child from the house. And they had a 9-year-old. The basis was, what happens is they go in, they interview the child, they interview the mother, they interview them separately. So the basis was, she asked the child, has your mother ever spanked you before today? The child says, well, yeah, she has. She asked the mother, hey, have you ever spanked your child before? Mother says, no, you know what? She's a good kid. I don't have any problems with her. Oh, mom's lying. I said,
oh, wow.
Now I'm there just kind of observing, right? Because that's what we do. We got to keep the peace. It's like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. I said, hold up, wait a minute. Let's go back and talk to this. I said, you said your mom spanked you before. When's the last time you got spanked? Oh, I think I was about 8. So you're telling me almost 10 years ago you got a spanking. And who's going to remember that? The child or the mom? A child is going to remember getting a spanking far more than the mother remember spanking her. So I tried to explain this to this DCFS worker who, by the way, was from the Valley, didn't know anything about Compton or the inner city, and didn't know about, she must have been about 24 years old, just out of college. So she wants to remove this child from the house and make this mother, a list of where she's going to need to go to these referrals, and she's going to consider what she's going to do with the 9-year-old. Long story short, what I'm getting at, Dame, is this. If we put decisions like that of breaking apart a family, if we put all of this money that we take from police and we put it in these other resources, but those other resources, there's still going to be people. If those people don't value and have respect for and cannot relate to any minority group, they're going to treat them like they're not valued.
Right.
And they're going to break apart families. They're not going to give them the same resources that you just said that you could get in Beverly Hills or Brentwood. So is defunding the police really going to solve the problem if you still have a system that has a mindset that certain areas are less valued or certain communities are less valuable than others?
I mean, yeah, like we know at the root of it, even that is, like you said, systemic racism in the way that we're viewed and the way that we are often handled, and the way, like you said, when people don't understand the culture, don't understand how, we raise our children, and all those things go into it. And I like that you said, look, I'm down for defunding the police if that means the resources will be there and we'll get 24-hour work, from those people as well. Because you're right. I think one thing I agree with that I've heard from the Defund the Police campaign. And you're right, there's so many different versions of it, so it's hard to really nail down what it is, because some people think defund, not think, but I've heard in certain places defund the police is dismantle the police, we don't want a police department. Other places I've heard defund the police is divert some funds from this budget and put it into more social services and more of the community. And then I've even heard that it was like defund the police was take the money from this police department, end it, and start another department that's only community based. Like, I've heard all of those things. So there is not one, and I've told you this, I said that to me the messaging on defund the police has been horrible, because there has not been like a streamlined version of what that plan is, and what it's just like a buzzword people heard, they got hyped and start yelling it without a real, real policy plan behind it. So I understand what you're saying, and to me, I do think that we need to take some of this stuff off your plate. Like, I don't think you guys should be social workers. I don't think you guys should be determining a mental health crisis, or if you are, I don't think you should be alone in it, right? Like, if you're all out late doing it, you should have a mental health worker who could tell you, like, oh, their diagnosis is A, B, and C, their mother told me they're on this medicine, so that means that they're probably being treated for this. Because I think all of those things will make for more specific interactions with people, because as we all know, sometimes law enforcement shouldn't be one size fits all, because every situation is its own thing, and you guys shouldn't be the end all be all to all of these different issues, because it is hard to keep up. It is hard to figure out, who you are that day and what you're supposed to be doing that day. Like, if he's having a mental breakdown, but you can't tell that it's a mental breakdown, like he's just been aggressive and he's going to hurt somebody, of course you're going to go into your police mind. Like, how do I subdue this threat? Right? You know what I mean? As opposed to somebody who'll be like, oh no, that kid is autistic, and that's how he gets when he, when the lights get cut off and he wasn't ready, type stuff. Because we've seen those situations where police came in and they saw that, and they shot the guy or hurt the guy, you know what I mean? Because they didn't understand the mental health aspect of it. And there's other aspects to it, that you talked about, even with the DCFS part of it. And I don't think you guys should be the end all be all to all the things. So I do think policy wise, and that's like a longer, bigger discussion, those are some things that need to be added into the budget, or if they are going to divert funds, those funds should go to that, to make sure that you guys have those kind of reinforcements that can be with you at all times, to make everybody on that call be able to make more informed decisions. You know what I mean? And and I just want to as well too, one, look, thank you so much for coming on here, taking all these candid questions and being so candid with us, and giving us the real, telling us how you really feel. I know for me, a lot of times I've been wanting to have these conversations, and I felt like there was nowhere to have it. And every time I tried to engage in this conversation, a lot of times it became what's the word? It became more of a battle than a conversation, right? Because I think, look, what happens to us forms our opinions about people. What happens, our experiences form how we operate and how we view certain things. So yes, since I was 16 years old, I've had a lot of very bad experiences with police officers. So of course there's a very sour taste in my mouth, but I think it maddens me even more when what we say and what we feel is diminished by officers to go to numbers, like what the numbers say, only a small percentage. I'm like, well, one, the number's not going to always tell the whole story, right? Because of course, if you want to talk specifically only about police killing people, of course you can skew those numbers a certain way, but there's not a number to talk about the amount of negative interactions Black Americans have had with police. There's not a real number, because like, I know my interactions haven't been put in a case file. My interactions haven't had a number on them. My interactions didn't get talked about with somebody. So people don't know about that. But I think it's telling that me, my father, my brothers, my best friend, all of which have no criminal history, have all had police brutality stories. And then I a couple of times I went on my page and I made a post that tell me your first negative interaction with police. And there was so many people going on and on about the things. And I said, now look, these interactions and these things, they're not going to have a number on it. they're not going to have some data that shows the stuff we went through. But I'm like, think about how high a rate and how crazy the numbers have to be for that many black men in my family to deal with that and not be a part of even criminal activity. Like these, we supposed to be the good guys, you know, and we still have had these police brutality stories and issues. So can you imagine how many other young black men have had this and have dealt with this? And even when you have these conversations, people still say, like, I had somebody, like I lost some friends because there was a young lady, white girl, friend I thought was a friend of mine, and I'm telling her about my experience, and she said, you had to have done something for the police to do that to you. Wow. Like you had to have done something. And the other day on a certain officer's post, there was a white lady on that post who told me, the way that you talk about police and your aggression, I could see why they did it. Like maybe they shouldn't call you racial slurs, but you probably deserved whatever you got because of the way that you talk and because of your aggression. And I'm like, that's really the way a lot of people think. They think, yeah. You know what I mean?
They think that way because they haven't. They think that way because they don't have to live that life.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And this is the one thing that, like you said, 16 years old, I'm getting pulled over by the police. No, I didn't do anything wrong. Getting jammed up, just hemmed up, arms twisted up, made to lay down on the hot ground. I'm like, driving a nice car. I'm driving my dad's car, for what? But the one thing that we have to realize, and you're right, it is, numbers can be skewed in any way, shape, or form. But as long as you have people that cannot relate to you, you said a friend who you thought was a friend, because in their world, it's reality that the police don't contact you unless you did something wrong.
Right.
So,
right.
I mean, really. See, so the problem is that I won't say society, I want to say the media, I want to say law enforcement, whoever has made the contributions to it, they have made the black man feared. So
right.
I
think it's a combination of all of those things.
Well, I was doing some research, last week, right? For a class that I was asked to go, presentation I was asked to do. I was doing some research. So I went on YouTube and I pulled up dash cam shootings. Okay. That's all I put in it. Police dash cam shootings. And the majority of the shootings on these dash cams were not black folks. They were white folks. And what I did was I had a still shot. I froze it right when this guy, and he was a white man with glasses and a baseball hat. So then I went to Google and I Googled white male wearing baseball cap and glasses. Right? And I come up with all these images. Why is that man not feared?
Right.
Why is that image not feared? But any black man walking down the street is. So I'll give you an example. I had, my dad had a friend of his, and they met in the neighborhood, when there was white guy, and this white guy, they kept in touch throughout the years. So one day, and this was many, many years later, I was an adult. I was a grown, they met when I was a kid, but I was an adult. This guy says, hey, man, I got robbed by this black dude. This is what he tells my father. I got robbed by this black guy. Now, every time I see a black guy, I just want to kill him.
Wow.
Rob me. Now, see, here's the thing. Me and his son, were friends when we were little. So I'm an adult. That means your son is an adult.
Yep.
So my question to him was, well, had it been a white guy, would you want to kill every white man that you see? And therefore, you'd want to kill your son every time you look at him. Why is it that because it just so happened to be a black man that robbed you, now all blacks are that culprit? They're that person. That's the problem right there. And see, and we can't hide, dang.
No.
When we had a group of 1,000 people and you put somebody 1,000 yards away and give them some binoculars. They may not be able to pick out no faces. They may not be able to say, oh, I see Dame, because you're too far away to see it. But I see a black man in the crowd. So we can't hide. However, white people can be mass murderers. They can be serial rapists. They can be pedophiles. They could be whatever they are. But nobody looks at them as saying, hey, that guy must be this.
Yeah.
But society looks at a lot of, not everybody in the, and like I said, speaking very general, because there's a lot of good people out there in the world, white, black, Asian, Hispanic, whatever it is.
Right.
But society looks at blacks in a general threat. And so it's because of the image that's been perpetuated. And I mean, and it goes back to the, hey, you know, the movie Birth of a Nation. From back then,
I was gonna say I can give you some information on how the whole perpetuation started. I'm reading this book for anybody out there. There's a book called Stamped from the Beginning. It's a great book about just the history of Black Americans from an intellectual standpoint all the way to where we are now. And so what happened was, especially in terms of judicial hearings, and so what they did was, anytime there was a crime committed by a white man back then, it was attributed to the individual. That white man is a bad white man. That one man is bad. Anytime a black man committed a crime, it was put in the press, put in the newspaper as, this is what black people do. Absolutely. So it was very specific, and it started even back then, and it went all the way up to, like you said, Birth of a Nation, which was like one of the beginnings of media. And after the beginnings of media, on to, you know, even how they had Jack Johnson versus the Great White Hope and all of that, like all of those things. And they started making flyers and stuff as Jack Johnson as a gorilla, saying he's coming to take your white women, and he's coming to sully the good virgin white women in your home and your family. Like, all of this stuff was very specific, and it was done intentionally, and it has carried on throughout. And so that's one of the reasons that we are. And I'll tell everybody, if you ever get a chance, it's a big book, long book, but it's so much information there. It's a great read. Stamped from the beginning. Check it out. It'll give you all the information, you know, just like you said, to show you how specific it was that we were put in a certain light to be looked at in a stereotypical manner. It wasn't an accident. You know what I mean? Like, that's something that wasn't an accident. But even that, so can you imagine back then that if they had it then, where if a black person did it, it was attributed to the whole race? Of course, this spilled over into law enforcement back then as well. Right. You know what I mean?
It's still happening, because when you look at the news media, and I'm sorry, I'm big on, I'm gonna stay on this thing with the media. I think they play a big role. When you look at a suspect, identification, pay attention to it. If it is a black suspect, they will generally say the suspect was a male black wearing dark clothing, a dark shirt, whatever. Yep. If it's a white suspect, they will be much more descriptive, and oftentimes they will give a name. The suspect is described as a male white, 6'4", 200 pounds, wearing this, wearing that, last seen driving this car. You know, his name is identified as, you know, John Doe, Robert Smith, whatever it is. So it's still going on today. So that when you get pulled over and you say you match the description, well, the description is kind of vague. Hey, it's a male black wearing a black shirt.
It could be any of us.
Male black, you know, and this just happened recently. Do you remember just recently there was a shooting at like an Airbnb party house in Beverly Hills or Brentwood?
Yeah, I saw that recently. Yep.
That description right there, and I heard it on the news. I want to say it was on Talk KNX or something like that. The description was just that vague. A male black, whatever it was, very vague. Now, you had all these people, you had all this video, you know, you have people there that you're interviewing. Are you telling me that was the only description you came up with? That was all that you could put out. So did you have more and you didn't use it? And if you didn't have more, what's the purpose of putting that out? Because who's going to identify
such a vague description?
No weight, no distinguishing marks. No, he got a beard, he got a goatee. Nothing. It's just so that tells you that in Brentwood, Beverly Hills area, any male black that's in the neighborhood, hey, jam them up, because that might be the suspect.
Yeah, basically. Still
going on today, brother. Still going on today.
Well, it's funny. I'm glad we having this conversation too, because I think a lot of people think that cops like you are oblivious to what's going on. A lot of people really think that you guys don't pay attention. Just going back to the very first question that sparked this whole thing was there are no good cops because they still let the racist cops run free. So I'm glad we getting a chance to have this dialogue and have this conversation so people can see that you are not oblivious. You guys are not oblivious. But in order for you guys to make change, and I'll say this part for you, you guys are going to need support, because if you are the Lone Ranger in there trying to stop racism, you're going to be blackballed. You're going to get put out of there. Just, straight up on some real shit. It's going to be hard for you to be the one good cop who's trying to stop this whole culture and whole structure, which is why we need PAR. We need more police involved in PAR. We need more people in the community involved in PAR. So when you guys do take shit to the streets, you got the community behind you to say, hey, y'all, let's show up at this city council meeting with PAR to tell them that we got some numbers. Let's show up to this hearing for this police who wanted to blow the whistle on somebody, who was a whistleblower. Let's show up to court to show him that he has support so that they know he's not alone. They won't be able to railroad him the way they have done to so many other people. We know that that's something that's severely needed. And what I want to do is, when we get a chance, I want to get you, want to get Joe, London. I want to get a few of you guys on and a few community members on. And we have a live roundtable just like this to continue this conversation. Get some of you guys, get some community leaders, and get some people who just live in the community who have questions for you guys and who want to talk, because I do think this is the way to at least, especially during COVID. I know they're about to start opening stuff back up. Because look, Uncouth, we've done a lot of community things, and this is the first time we've been able to get together with law enforcement and start to do some things, and if we see a need in the community, we try to fill it. Like one of the things we did what we called a financial mixer. So we had a little mixer where people could come have drinks and happy hour. But during the drinks and happy hour, we had a financial advisor come in and talk about fixing your credit. We had somebody come in and talk about buying a home. We had somebody come in and talk about doing stocks and bonds and all of that stuff, just so we could try to give information that we don't have in our community. And I think we need to do something very similar virtually first. We could do a virtual mixer with us, some of the, you law enforcement guys and some of the people who need to have these conversations with you guys, so we can start bridging and building that trust. And then when things open up a little, I think we should have, a little PAR community mixer where people could come and really just start to talk to you guys and get to see you as people and understand because I know we can't get into all of the things that you guys go through on the inside. I'll just, say there are some conversations I think if people had with you guys directly, they will have a better understanding of the inner workings and what you guys are really up against and what it's going to take to help you guys go up against those things. Right. Yeah, definitely. And like I say, I've been on a bunch of the conversations with you guys, and everybody who knows me and who follows me knows I wouldn't support any kind of, anything that I didn't feel was to the detriment of our people, or anything I didn't feel was really about pushing the conversation forward or pushing the movement forward. And I definitely feel like you guys are sincere in your mission. I feel like you guys really are trying to push the conversation forward, push policy forward, and like you said, get into the right doors to help the right people. So that's basically me in closing. But if there's anything you want to say to the people before we leave, or any knowledge you want to drop, please go ahead. And if there's anything you need to plug or whatever, let the people know.
Well, I'll just say, first of all, Dane, thank you for this time, brother. I always enjoy having a conversation with you. And anytime you need us to come out and do something, let us know. I just want people to know that, being a person becoming a cop does not make that person bad, but a bad person becoming a cop can be a bad cop, and I just really want people to know that, many of us are just like everybody else out there. We grew up, we went to school, we lived in a community, we have our experiences, we have our kids, I go out and I do the same thing that you do on the weekends. I barbecue, I smoke a cigar, I go ride my motorcycle, whatever it is, we're just people. We're just people. And I want you to at least start looking at us as a person versus an entity. And just as we can come up with all these stereotypical negative connotations about any race, Hispanics, blacks, Asians, none of us want to be lumped into that, just because we belong to a group. And police officers are the same. I would just say, give us a chance as individuals, give us a chance as just a person, and don't look at police officers. Now, you're going to have bad experiences with police officers. I've had bad experiences with black folks, but I don't dislike black folks. I've had bad experience with white folks, Hispanics, Asians, whatever, teachers, doctors. But when I get sick, I'm still going to go to the doctor. I'm just going to recognize that that's not the one that I want. So that is my biggest pitch right there. Please join us at policeagainstracism.org. Come to the website, come to the meetings, just sit in and listen, or get involved and partake, and let's continue this dialogue, and let's continue to build these bridges. And hey man, we got a long road ahead of us, but Dame, we in the fight.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. Uncouth Radio, Uncouth Conversations with Mr. Eric Strong. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Until next time, Uncouth, we'll see you guys next week. We're going to be on at 4 o'clock because, Kamala is going to be going against Pence on Wednesday. So we don't want to cut into that time. So we're going to go on early next week. Until next time, later.